The Leaning Tower of Pisa was actually the result of human error. Just one small miscalculation made in the 11th century brought us an amazing 14,500-ton leaning tower. The Tower of Pisa is the bell tower of churches. The city of Pisa was in the beginning a simple but important port of Italy. As it grew, so did its religious buildings. Its fame and power gradually increased over the years, as the people of Pisa were involved in various military conflicts and trade deals. The Pisans attacked the city of Palermo on the island of Sicily in 1063. The attack was successful and the conquerors returned to Pisa with a lot of treasure. To show the world how important the city is, the people of Pisa decided to build a large cathedral complex called the Square of Miracles. The plan included a cathedral, a baptistry, a bell tower, Pisa Tower, and a cemetery. In the 12th century, construction began on the bell tower of Pisa Cathedral, a bustling commercial center on the Arno River in western Italy, 50 miles from Florence. While construction was still underway, the base of the tower began to sink into the soft, swampy ground, causing it to lean to one side. Its builders tried to compensate for the thinness by making the upper floors taller on one side, but the extra masonry required only caused the tower to sink further. When it was completed in 1360, today's engineers say it was a miracle that it didn't collapse completely. When was the Leaning Tower of Pisa built? The construction of the Leaning Tower of Pisa began in August 1173. It was interrupted several times by wars, debt, and while engineers worked on solutions to correct the mess. We now know that without these breaks, which allowed the soil to compact under the tower, it would certainly have toppled over. The Leaning Tower of Pisa was finally completed in the mid-1300s. Who built the Leaning Tower of Pisa? The true identity of the architects of the Leaning Tower of Pisa is a mystery. The most famous architects of this first phase of work are Bonanno Pisano and Gherardo d'Ingerardo. The second phase of construction began in 1275 and the work is attributed to Giovanni da Simone. Tommaso Pisano, 1372–1350, was the architect who finished the work. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is falling at a rate of 1 to 2 millimeters per year. This piece of architecture, which is known among Italians as Torre Pendente di Pisa, is significantly different from most medieval architecture. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is located in the main square of the city, Piazza del Duomo. With its many columns and arches, the tower has an advanced knowledge of weight and load characteristics, which shows the expertise of Italian architects. So why is the tower tilted? What the architect did not pay attention to was the base of the tower, which was built on a dense section of clay. The early years of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The construction of the tower began in 1173. Originally designed as a bell tower, it stood upright for over 5 years, but began to lean when the third floor was completed in 1178. The Italians were shocked by this event, as the tower slowly bent. The thing is that the foundation of the tower, which is only 3 meters deep, is built on a dense clay mixture. The mixture affected the soil, and besides, the clay was not strong enough to hold the tower straight. As a result, the weight of the tower began to spread downward until it found its weakest point. Due to this problem, construction work was stopped for 100 years. The government decided to focus on its war with Genoa and hoped that the soil would settle in the meantime. Mistake after mistake. After 100 years, engineer Giovanni da Simone stepped forward and began adding more floors to the tower. He tried to compensate for the original thinness by making one side of the upper floors taller than the other. This only caused the tower to bend further. Regardless of the leaning, the tower was added a 7th floor as well as a bell tower in the second half of the 14th century, and then the tower was left alone until the 19th century. In 1838, the architect Alessandro della Girardesca excavated a path at the base of the tower to allow the public to admire the intricately constructed foundations. This caused the tower to bend further, possibly due to the excavation of its foundation. The tower survived World War II. World War II wreaked havoc all over the world. But the Leaning Tower of Pisa was very lucky. In fact, When American soldiers invaded Pisa, they were ordered to demolish all the buildings to prevent enemy snipers from finding suitable hiding places. There were no exceptions to this rule, and many buildings were blown up every day as U.S. forces advanced over the Italian countryside. However, shortly after the arrival of the Americans, there was a retreat, and the destruction of the Leaning Tower of Pisa was not necessary. And it still stands. 20 years after the end of the war, Italy asked for help to prevent the Leaning Tower from toppling. They did not want the tower to lose its support, as it is now a symbol of the city, a landmark that is loved by tourists from all over the world. As a temporary measure, engineers and architects installed an 800-ton lead counterweight. In 1987, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, along with the entire Piazza del Duomo, was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but it was closed in 1990. Its bells were removed and the tower docked, but it was reopened in 2001. Tourists can now safely visit the Leaning Tower of Pisa. If you want to travel to Pisa with the help of a professional English-speaking guide, book a tour with us. On December 15, 2001, Italy's Leaning Tower of Pisa reopened after spending 11 years and $27 million to strengthen the tower without destroying its famous spire.